just the fact that they ran it and the clock, like I just don't think the time would be there. And then of course it's the strip sack and then the avalanche.
Yeah, this is a fun pod.
The words 28-3 have not come out of my mouth. They have not. Well, they have now, but they had not come out of my mouth until then. Hey everybody, what's up? Trey Wingo here, back with you, and welcome into Season 8 of Half Forgotten History. Hard to believe we've already put 7 seasons in the books, or on the interwebs, or on my YouTube page, or on the podcast app you use. Whatever, you know what I mean. We're really excited about this season. We've got some great guests lined up, including the guy we're kicking off Season 8 with. He's the guy that the Colts have looked to try and replace the revolving door quarterback ever since Andrew Luck retired. We're talking, of course, about Matt Ryan, finally playing for a team besides the team that drafted him in the first round in 2008, the Atlanta Falcons. What's the adjustment been like? What are his expectations in Indy? And what happened in Super Bowl 51, 28-3? We'll get to all of that. So here we go. Episode 1, Season 8. New Colts quarterback, Matt Ryan. Enjoy. Let's start here. Do you know that you're in the most elite company in the history of the NFL? You're one of four players in the history of the NFL who has thrown for at least 50,000 yards and been an MVP and has changed teams. Do you have any idea who the other three are?
Well, I gotta imagine it's Peyton Manning.
Correct.
Imagine Tom Brady.
Correct.
And the fourth, my gut is Drew, but I know that's not Drew.
Think of the number.
Brett Favre.
Boom! There you go. Congratulations. So listen, this is my way of saying no pressure. Brady went on to win a Super Bowl. Manning went on to win a Super Bowl. Favre should have taken the Vikings to the Super Bowl until you threw that horrendous interception in the NFC Championship game. So the bar is set for you.
Well, it's good company to be in. I like being in that company as often as I can. And hopefully I can do what some of those guys did in those other places. That's for sure.
Well, you're in the process of that as we're taping this now. You're going through OTAs. How much were you aware that there was the potential that you would be moving after all those years in Atlanta? Did you have any sort of inkling? Were you getting an idea?
Not really after the season ended. And I think the one thing that the longer you're around is you really understand that a lot of movement tends to happen right around that free agency period. And so as we got closer to that, I would still say I was pretty sure I was going to be back there, but that like they do with all positions, kind of evaluating what they want to do moving forward. And it really, when it went down pretty fast, within a week, my mindset had changed pretty drastically. And so I'm happy with where I'm at. I'm happy with how things shook out. I felt like, although, some of the things you didn't love were going on, I always felt like I was in the loop, and really, transparency is all you can ask for.
Right. Sort of shifted. Did they tell you, hey, we're going to try and move you? And did they involve you in any way about, did you have a preference?
Yes. And they were really, really good. Atlanta was really good about that, of understanding that, it was probably best for everybody. And everybody says that it's best for everybody, but it was probably best for everybody. And, as I started to, on my end, do some research and figure out what might be a good fit for me, they were actually, great, I don't want to say work with, but they were, it worked out really well. And they were, more than willing to try and help me get to where I wanted to get to.
That's interesting, because a lot of times players will just say, you know what? Didn't hear a word, didn't hear a thing. How rare do you think it is that Arthur and everybody with Atlanta was willing to sort of include you and work with you?
Yeah, I think, I can't really speak for, how other organizations, I've been with 2 now, and, how other organizations and relationships have worked. I think it's unique. I think probably, you mentioned those 4 guys. I think each of our circumstances were unique in that we were with the same place for such a long time, and developed, very personal relationships. And while there is the business side of it, those personal relationships will continue as we move forward. And I think that probably led to some of the transparency, of them feeling like, for 14 years, I did everything I could to do right by them, and be the best player I could. And when it came time to move on, and the situation changed, I appreciate that they felt compelled to do right by me.
So, as you said, get to where you wanted to go. This was the wildest offseason ever in the history of the NFL, especially with the idea of quarterbacks. Like, normally, quarterbacks are a fairly stable position, right? You have one, you ride one forever. It felt like this year quarterbacks were going all over the place, and you were a part of that. What made Indy, in your mind, the right place if you were going to leave Atlanta?
Well, I thought, I thought a few things. I thought, number one, when you look at the roster, I thought it was a really good roster that fits, some of the things that I do really well. This is a place that has hung their hat on running the football. And I feel like throughout my career, I've done a great job in the play action pass game. In the years where I feel like I've been at my best, we've been able to get that rolling. And so, I felt like that was a good situation to come into. You looked at the defensive side of the ball. I think it's a defense that has played really well for a handful of years, and has good players all over the place. And that's something, as a quarterback, particularly as you become more experienced, you're around a long time, you understand, good defense keeps you in a game every week. And, for me, that two parts of it from the roster standpoint and the players that they had here were huge. And then, talking to other people who had worked with Chris Ballard, and what he was all about, and the vision that he had for building a football team, impressed me. And then, really, it's Frank Reich too. I mean, just the person that he is, understanding, the background that he's had both as a coach and as a player, the guys that I know that have played for him, that have worked with him. He just, both those guys came highly recommended. And so, to me, I wanted something that was stable in a lot of areas, an organization that was stable in terms of its roster, an organization that was stable in terms of its front office, and a coaching staff that I have a lot of belief in. So it just checked, this place checked a lot of the boxes that I was looking for.
What was your relationship with Frank like before you got there?
I knew him in passing, really. And it's odd, he reminded me of this, but the first time we met was actually here in Indianapolis at the Combine. We were both leaving at a certain time and both working in different places, right? And he had come up and we had spoken for a few minutes. And it's just funny sometimes how, life comes full circle. But I knew a bunch of the guys that have played for him like a bunch of the quarterbacks that have played for him. We had a handful of guys that I knew that have coached with him. And that was, I leaned on the guys that I knew better, and knowing that they would shoot me straight and give me, what Frank was really like on the day-to-day and the reputation. And his is really, as good as it gets in this league.
Yeah, he's kind of like, sort of this generation's quarterback whisperer, right? I mean, for a lot of years, that was Bruce, whether it was in Arizona or what he did in Tampa. Now he's in the front office there, obviously in Pittsburgh, and he stopped by and did great things in Indianapolis as well. But you get the feeling that Frank Reich is considered one of those coaches that knows how to get the most out of every quarterback that plays for him.
I certainly get that feel. And he does it in different ways. You mentioned Bruce too. I think like those guys have such a knack. They're all different players that they've done it with. It's not like a cookie cutter. Let's fit this guy into this mold. They've got a depth of knowledge of the position, and understanding that it can be done a lot of different ways. And they have a really good feel for, what guys' talents are, and not catering everything just to those talents, pushing guys to get better in certain areas, but also, allowing them to be comfortable in the things they're asked to do. And in the short amount of time, the 6 or 8 weeks that we've been able to really work together, and watching the cut-ups of what they've done here in Indianapolis, what they did in San Diego with Phillip, and what they did in Philadelphia. It's all different,
Yeah.
you know, and I think that's the really cool part. And him explaining why they were doing things with certain guys, what they felt like their strengths were, really allowed me to say, hey, these are some of the things I like, you know, of what we're doing. And this is what, you know, I feel comfortable with.
Well, that's interesting because someone would think, look, you've been in the league 14 years, you've had all kinds of success, you're an MVP. What would you see in what they do that's different? Like when you say it's different, how is it different from the other situations that you found yourself in?
Well, I think just what gets emphasized, right? And so I think when you're in the same building for a long time, um, you know, while you may be changing coaching staffs, there's really that feeling of this is the way we do it, you know, like because a lot of the players stay the same, even though you go through different coordinators or different head coaches, a lot of the players remain. And so there's just I don't know how to explain it, but when you're in the same place for a long time, this is how I do it, you know, and so a lot of times it's the coach adjusting to the players, and I think in this case, you know, I'm the one guy coming into a roster that's, you know, there's a ton of continuity,
Loaded with Pro Bowlers from last season.
Yeah, exactly. Loaded with Pro Bowlers, guys that have done it at a high level, and you look around and you say, listen, I don't want to disrupt all of what has been going on here. That's been really good. It's more of how can I fit in, how can I add in certain areas and try and make this team better.
Well, it's interesting. We're doing this in the middle of OTAs, and I just pulled up this article. I want to read the headline to you. It's Matt Ryan's fiery moment at OTAs, applauded by Pro Bowl teammates. Apparently, it was an end of a session, and things weren't going well. And according to DeForest Buckner, they had some errors. The offense, he got the whole offense to a huddle and just ripped him a new one. So apparently, fiery Matt Ryan is coming to Indianapolis, baby.
Well, listen, yeah, I think a lot of people have me pegged incorrectly. You know,
Yeah.
I am pretty low key and you know, pretty easygoing. But I am a little bit fiery when I get on the field, you know, and there's a certain expectation that we want things done the right way. And sometimes you got to rip somebody's ass, you know, that's okay.
Yeah.
This is football. That's what you got to do. And, you know, it comes from a good space, but, you know, there's a standard. I really believe this year, there's been a really good standard set, not only from the players in this building, but you talk about like the legacy of, you know, Peyton Manning that built this place, that won so many division championships. There's an expectation for success within this building. And, you know, in order to do that, you got to do it every day, whether it's OTAs, whether it's walkthrough, whether it's whatever, we got to be locked in. And it's a young group, you know, it really is. It's a talented group, but it's a young group, and a group that I think can grow quite a bit, even though they've been very good, you know, up until this point.
So we're at OTAs right now, and really, this is the first time in the last 3 off seasons that we've had any sort of semblance of normalcy when it comes to OTAs. Obviously, in 2020, everything was shut down. Last year, there were all these protocols still put in place to just make sure we get to the season with COVID. How important is it for you, jumping over after 14 years, to be in a new place, to have a normal offseason, sort of get yourself ramped up?
Yeah, it's huge. You know, I feel so fortunate, you know, that we're at the space where we can get back in the building every day. We can work, we can do the things we need to do in order to get ready. And you know, those off seasons were obviously much easier. You know, not easy from the standpoint of, you know, you're certainly worried about, you know, COVID and all those things and the protocols, but it's easier because you're in the same place, right? Like, you know, the building, you know how it operates, you know how things go. And, you know, to be making this transition and coming in here and getting a feel for how it operates and how it flows pretty quickly has been good. And I also think it's really good too, you know, as a veteran player coming into a roster that is young, of letting those young guys know that haven't had the opportunities to go through this time of the year, to say, hey, listen, like we need to make progress now. It's not about, you know, getting in shape, knocking off some rust. It's about getting better. And we need to take advantage of this time. So I think from both standpoints, it's been really good.
Yeah, Mark Schlereth, who I've been friends with for years, always used to say this about preseason and OTAs. It may not count, but it matters, right?
Yeah. I couldn't agree, you know, I used to watch you guys on there too all the time, and I love
Yeah,
listening to Mark. He's old school, and
yeah.
I love kind of his take on it. And I think it's weird for me to say this now because I still feel young, but I feel like my mindset is old
So do I,
school.
bro. And the beard is telling me otherwise. So I get it. Believe me, I get it.
Totally. But I agree with that. We might not have wins or losses attached to practices, this time of the year. But the reason we're going to win is because of the work that we're putting in right now and
Yeah.
and the growth that we need to be the best version of ourselves. So, I couldn't agree more with that.
Speaking of offensive linemen who are throwbacks in old school, have you had a Quentin Nelson moment yet?
Listen, I'm ready for the pads to go on. With him, I'm ready. I'm ready for the pads to go on to watch what he's doing. It's definitely a little more restrained with the offensive defensive line. This time of the year, it's
Yeah.
more of pass game emphasis. But he's been awesome. And I've heard stories about him for a long time. So my cousin Mike McGlinchey played at
Oh,
Notre
yeah, I
Dame
know. Yeah. With him. Yeah.
with Renton, and so I've heard stories about him, since he was young at Notre Dame and what he's all about, and to be able to play with him and just see the mindset that he has every day. It's been really cool.
Yeah, McGlinchey. Believe me, I was all over that McGlinchey story when he was being drafted and thrown the whole thing. We painted the whole picture, including Matt Ryan in that whole thing. So this podcast is called Half Forgotten History. So we're excited about your future with Indianapolis. We're looking forward to what happens, but we got to delve in some other things as well. So why don't we take our first break here, and we'll come back with Matt Ryan on this episode of Half Forgotten History. Stay with us. All right, guys, time for a little Matt Ryan trivia brought to you by Mercedes-Benz Sprinter Vans, unlocking your potential to drive your ambitions as far as you want to take them. Since he was drafted 3rd overall in 2008, how many games do you think Matt Ryan has missed in his career? Listen for the answer at the top of the next break. You open up a Mercedes-Benz Sprinter and you're opening more than doors. You're unlocking potential to do your own thing, be your own boss, and live out your own dreams. With 16 body types, your choice of a gas or diesel engine, and thousands of ways to customize, a Sprinter van is capable and versatile enough to help you drive your ambitions as far as you want to take them. So go ahead, unlock your potential inside a Mercedes-Benz Sprinter. All right, back with new Colts quarterback, which still seems a little weird. Matt Ryan here on this episode of Half Forgotten History. Your career in Atlanta really spanned everything, right? It was sort of the transition from the Michael Vick years in Atlanta to a brand new area of Falcon football where you guys were in the playoffs all the time. When someone says to Matt Ryan, if you could sum up your time as a Falcon, what would you say?
Yeah, I think it had some highs, it had some lows. There's no doubt about it. I think one of the things I'm proud of during that time is the level of consistency. Number one, that I played with, but two, as a football team, we had for a long time. When I got there, there had never been back-to-back winning seasons in the history of the organization, and I didn't know about that until my second year when we were going down to Tampa and we were 8-7, and we were out of the playoffs at the point. It was my second year. But it was like the biggest thing going that we had to win this game, because of just the history of the organization of just kind of it being a roller coaster year to year, and the consistency that we brought and the ability for the first 5 years to go to the playoffs, to make a run to the Super Bowl, obviously fall a little bit short. The following year, get back to it. I'm really proud of it, and I'm proud that I was able to be there that long and to provide really, one of the better decades and a half of Falcons, football.
Yeah. Since you brought up Super Bowl 51, let's chat a little bit about that. Obviously, that was your MVP season. Fantastic things for you. I was at that game, and I Peter Schrager will confirm this. We talked before everyone else was picking New England. We're like, Falcons are going to win the Super Bowl. I mean, we just went through the whole thing, and we are feeling so smug. We are feeling like people should have just listened to us, man. We were so convinced, we were going to be this shining light of prognostication in this Patriot sea. And then it all went sideways. Like, what are your recollections about how the game began, and when did you feel like, oh, hold on a minute here?
You know, um, it began great. you know,
Yeah.
I have to be honest. We came out firing, and we played well, and did a lot of good things. We knew it was going to be a battle going into it. Just their experience, having played in that game so many times, the toughness that organization is built on, uh, playing against Tom Brady, and just his capacity to find ways to win games. We knew it was going to be a grind. Um, I really believe we were going to win no matter what the circumstances were, and felt like what's so hard is felt like we had the game won when we hit Julio on the sideline. Just unbelievable catch, and we had such a consistent kicker in Matt Bryant who was automatic, and
Baylor boy.
yeah, yeah, there you go. Just an unbelievable guy who had, you talk about forgotten history, how consistent he was in Atlanta for so long, just unbelievable.
Yeah.
And so, I still believed it. And we had an opportunity, getting the ball back late in the game, still felt like we were going to have a chance. And then it kind of, when the overtime started and they started driving, it was like, oh, come on.
Yeah.
And so, that was probably it. That last drive in overtime, kind of realizing, man, this isn't going to go our way. This is not how I envisioned this going. But I'm proud of the effort. It's hard. You look back and shoulda, coulda, would have liked to have done a few things different. But certainly know, the next time I'm in that situation, feel like I'm certainly capable of going playing my best football, because I think most of the night I did that.
Yeah, you did. And you mentioned the catch by Julio. For those that don't remember, this was after the Patriots had tied the game. And you guys came down, and it was a sideline catch by Julio Jones that looked like it put you guys in field goal position. Then you had a penalty and a sack, and you guys had to punt. But I will die on this hill because everyone loves the Edelman catch. Either was it in overtime or in regulation, where it was juggling.
In regulation.
And, it was in regulation, right? And he made the – and it was an incredible catch. I want to be clear. And it was gritty, and it was incredible, and it was just – there was no give up. But what Julio did on the sidelines, that was a better catch in that game, and I don't think it's even close.
Listen, they got their ring, they got their trophy, so good for them. But that was a better catch. Julio's was a better catch. There's no question about it. And just
it was unhuman.
It really was. And the ability to go up and get it, number one, but then also toe drag that and be able to secure the football going down. I mean, he's such a stud, such an unbelievable player. So that was an awesome play.
The other thing I'll always try and tell people about that game, it's an indication of why always take the points, okay? I remember sitting in this, people like, oh, they should go for it on fourth down. No, they're kicking the field goal to stay in the game. And they kept kicking field goals, which kept them in the game. I mean, if they had gone for it on that fourth down instead of the kick that made it 28-12, well, then if they're short, it's not a two-possession game anymore, and they're out of it. I mean, that to me is the living example of why you should always take the points.
I agree. I'm a believer, extend the game as long as you can. And You're exactly right. Take the points, take those kind of things. Let's make this a game as long as you can. Because I believe, too, when you have a great quarterback or I always think of myself this way. If we have the ball, we have a chance. We have a chance, regardless of how the first three quarters have shaken out. If we're in the mix and there's an opportunity, we're going to find a way.
Yeah. So after that field goal comes the infamous 3rd and 1 play, right? And there was confusion because I think Freeman was late because Tevin Coleman got hurt. And it was a 3rd and 1. And I've always said, and I want to get your opinion on this. I've always said, if you just ran it on 3rd and 1, and even if you didn't get the first down, the idea of the time running off the clock and the flipping of the field with the punt probably would have ended the Patriots' chances of scoring 2 touchdowns and 2 extra points to tie the game.
Is this the play with the sack fumble?
There you go.
Yeah. That one hurt. We had action too.
Yeah.
Aldrick Robinson was running like a pylon route. He was coming wide open. And so, it's hard because we had played aggressive that entire year. And you want to stay within what you were doing, who you were, what got you there. But I mean, hindsight's 2020. Didn't work out, so you're probably right, And so we obviously would have done something different. But Yeah, that was a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah, because there was confusion because Freeman was coming in late because Coleman was hurt, right, and he didn't understand the assignment. I don't listen. Like you said, it's easy to look at hindsight, but I just in my head I always go, even if they don't get the first down, just the fact that they ran it and the clock, like I just don't think the time would be there. And then of course it's the strip sack, and then the avalanche.
Yeah, this is a fun pod.
The worst 28-3 have not come out of my mouth. They have not. Well, they have now, but they had not come out of my mouth until then. Does Kyle Shanahan have a running the ball issue? Like, in Super Bowl 54, the Chiefs had just scored, and they on first down they rip off 7 yards, and then on second and 3 and third and 3, he throws it both times, and then the Chiefs get the ball back and score.
Well, I love Kyle. I'm going to start there. I love Kyle.
I do too. I want to be clear. I love Kyle.
And this is the thing, nobody runs the football. I mean, he runs the football as well as anybody in the last 10, 12 years of the NFL. But yeah, I would have. A couple runs would have been good.
Kyle, we love you. We're just trying to help. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah,
we love you. We're just trying to help.
That's right.
Yeah, we're team players. All right, let's go back a little further. Like, the draft now is a circus. Like, it's an insane reality television show with all this stuff, and Vegas was over the top. I think if you tell this to someone who wasn't around or wasn't a football fan when you were drafted, they wouldn't believe you that the number 1 pick in the 2008 draft, Jake Long, was signed before the draft began.
That's right.
By the Miami Dolphins. Like, can you imagine that existing in today's world?
Man, it's so different. I think back to my experience during that time, and I guess there were like 6 of us. We were up in New York, which I kind of, and don't get me wrong, I think these cities have done an amazing job hosting the draft.
Yeah.
But I always thought there was something special about it was New York City, and you were lucky enough, it was a small group of guys who were there. And to have had that experience the entire week of being up there, the draft was on Saturday, noon. You mentioned it. Jake Long was signed like 2 weeks before. He was like the most relaxed guy I've ever seen up there. I got to know Jake well, and he was so chill up there in New York, kind of knowing everything was going down. He was relaxed and just having a good time. But it was. It's amazing how much it's changed in the 15 years since I was drafted, and to a certain extent it's good. It's probably grown the NFL in certain ways, and been great for the fans. There's no question about that. I do miss a little bit of that Radio City Music Hall Saturday afternoon. The draft was getting started. We're getting those rounds going, and it was a 2-day deal.
Yeah, it was a blast. And maybe if your name was Matt Long, you would have been drafted first.
I know.
Because it was Jake Long 1, Chris Long number 2 to the Rams, and you went number 3. What kind of conversations did you have leading up to the draft with the Dolphins? Because they were in need of a quarterback. I told some friends of mine that are Dolphin fans, I'm getting texts from them right now saying, tell him he should have been a Dolphin. Did you think in any way, shape, or form you were going to Miami, or did Bill shut that down very quickly?
Well, 2 weeks before when they signed Jake, I knew that wasn't going to happen. But, I didn't know. Obviously met with them and, did, kind of the workouts, the whole deal that you do with those organizations. But for whatever reason, they were dead set on Jake. And listen, Jake was a great player.
He was.
Had some injuries, but I mean, he was an unbelievable player coming out of school, had some great years in Miami. He ended up playing with us in Atlanta for a short stint too, which was cool, a handful of years later. But I knew that, probably about a month out, I knew that probably wasn't going to happen. And then really, I knew it was St. Louis at the time, had Mark Bulger, and, knew that probably wasn't a likelihood unless they traded out. And really thought, the teams that it probably came down to, at least for me, at the time, were Atlanta, Kansas City. I think Kansas City was maybe drafting 5 or something like that. The New York Jets were at 6, and the Baltimore
dodge that one.
Yeah. And the Baltimore Ravens were further down, but there were talks of possible trades of them moving up, and so it really, to me, it was probably those 4 teams that were really in the mix.
it's just so crazy to think about it now. Like I know we just came off a draft where quarterbacks weren't really a big part of the picture except for Kenny Pickett in the first round. But if there's a franchise type quarterback who goes 3, it's almost impossible in this day and age to think that he wouldn't go 1. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, it was different. I remember my agent Tom Condon was telling me, he's like, of course you're going number 1. You're going number 1,
Yeah.
and he was representing Jake too. And so he's like, oh, they got to. They have to. If they don't have the quarterback, they got to take the quarterback. And Tom was the best, no question about that. But he wasn't right on this one. I ended up going through. It worked out pretty well.
No, it did. You had a great run in Atlanta, and now, of course, you're getting ready for phase 2 in Indianapolis. All right, let's take our final break here. We'll come back and finish things up with Matt Ryan here on Have Forgotten History. When you open up a Mercedes-Benz Sprinter, you're opening more than doors. You're unlocking potential. The potential to do your own thing, be your own boss, and live out your own success. Mercedes-Benz Sprinter van owners live, work, and play out their dreams, no matter how far off the beaten path it takes. Because they know there's nothing like following your own passions and reawakening the spirit of adventure that lies within all of us. With 16 body types, your choice of a gas or diesel engine, and thousands of ways to customize, a Sprinter van is capable and versatile enough to help you drive your ambitions wherever you want to take them. So go ahead, now's the time. Unlock your potential inside a Mercedes-Benz Sprinter. All right, so I know you're dying for it, so here it is. The answer to the Mercedes-Benz Sprinter van trivia question about Matt Ryan. He has missed a grand total of three games since being drafted 3rd overall in the 2008 draft. Now back to more of our Have Forgotten History episode with the previously mentioned, the guy who's only missed 3 games in his entire career, Matt Ryan. All right, back with Matt Ryan here on this episode of Have Forgotten History. So, like we said, you're in phase 2 of your NFL career, 14 years in, going into year 15. You know, the game has changed dramatically in terms of how it's officiated, especially for the quarterbacks. Do you, in your mind, have an idea at the age of 37 how long you think you can do this or you want to do this?
I don't have like a number, but I know, my body feels really good. From like a competitive standpoint, I still want to get out of bed every day and do this. Like this is, that part hasn't changed at all. I think you kind of nailed it too, saying like the officiating has changed. The way the game is played is different. Yeah. And, I think part of that, and me being, the strength of my game is passing from the pocket, so, some of the things you might lose, with age, speed, and those things have never really been the strong, the things I hang my hat on. So I think
same. Just so you know.
Exactly. And so, I think the way that I play, the way that the game is officiated now, the way I take care of myself and feel like I've gotten myself into a good routine, I do think it leads to guys playing longer. I mean, you definitely see that, but I feel like I'm in a great spot. I don't sit here and say like I'm going to play until I'm 45. I'm not sure. That's exactly what I want to do. But at 37, I feel great. I'm in this new spot. I'm playing with a young group of guys that make you feel younger every day you're in the building. And to me, I really still feel that there's a lot of gas in the tank.
How important is that, though, to be around younger guys that sort of rejuvenate you, right?
Yeah, I think part of it is that, and that was the same case in Atlanta last year, really. I mean, we had a really young football team there. And part of, teaching those guys and, just when you're around 55, 60 different guys that are all 25, 26 or younger, inevitably you just feel like you're 25, 26, even though you're a little longer in the tooth and maybe have a few more miles on your bones. But, I still feel in my mid 20s, and, still feel really good.
Is Tom Brady the devil?
I don't know what
he's 45 years old. He looks better than he's ever looked. Like he threw it at 44. He had the most touchdown passes and the most yards. He's had to make a deal with the devil, right? That's the only explanation.
I don't know what he's done. He's done something. Whatever he's done, it's worked. Excuse me. I think you're right though. Having played them in division last year, what's amazing to me is arm strength, velocity, like he looks to me like he's throwing it better than he ever has. And To me, it's inspirational because it's like, no, you can get better. It requires more work, more dedication, and sacrifice than at different points of your life. But it's in there. You're capable of doing it, and I guess I'm thankful to him for that. I'm mad at him for a few other things, but I'm thankful for that.
A few other reasons. Yeah. And Tom, if you're watching, we're kidding, of course. It's just kind of ridiculous how you continue to do this. All right, of all the young guns in the league, the young quarterbacks, is there one that you look and go, that guy, like when they're all said and done, that guy's going to be the one?
Well, I think there's some really good ones right now. Played against Josh Allen last year for the first time up in Buffalo. He's very impressive, big, strong, physical. He takes a beating. That's the hard thing. Yeah. He takes a beating, but he's so big and physically gifted. Reminds me of like young Ben Roethlisberger. Guys sometimes forget, how athletic Ben was at the start.
He was nimble, for a big boy. He was nimble.
Unbelievable. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes, I mean, he's had an incredible start to his career. It's not that young anymore. I mean, he's been doing it for a handful of years now. The young guy that, and I mean, Joe Burrow last year, like phenomenal. Yeah. I really think Justin Herbert is interesting. Watching him a couple different times, we played against him. Big, physical. I mean, he's huge. He's like massive in person. He's so athletic, but he throws it. He throws it really well too. I mean, he's got power. He's got touch. He's got accuracy. I feel like the position's in a good space. There's a lot of really good young players right now.
Yeah, it might be with guys like yourself and Aaron and Tom, and then all the young guns. I feel like the position might be as deep as it's been in 20 years.
I don't disagree. I mean, you got some veteran guys. Yeah. You mentioned it. Tom still playing at a high level. Aaron still playing at a high level. Matthew Stafford, winning the Super Bowl last year, playing great. And then all these young guys that you mentioned. It's really, it's competitive right now. I mean, I switch over to the AFC, and like forever I was in the NFC, and it was like, man, all these quarterbacks are in the NFC. I got to see Drew Brees every year. I got to see Aaron Rodgers. You're going against these guys that, and now it's like, well, I just switched over, and now I got to see, Patrick Mahomes. You got to see Derek Carr. You got to see Justin Herbert. You got loads of good players, at the position right now. It's fun.
It really is. And for those that have forgotten, you went to Boston College. So I always like to ask this question. You're walking and you see two guys in front of you. They're both bald, and you know them both. From the back of their heads, could you pick out which one is Matt Hasselbeck and which one is Tim Hasselbeck?
Well, for sure off the height. I can know off the height which one I'm going to see Matt and Tim. But if they were on the same level, I'm not sure I could call it.
It's like following Stuart Sink and Jim
100%.
Furyk, right? I mean, which dome is it? I don't know.
I'm not quite sure.
And I appreciate the honesty in that answer. When we started this podcast today, our producer was in a kerfuffle because he can't find his wallet. So I always have this question with friends of mine. What would you rather lose, your wallet or your phone?
I'd rather lose my wallet.
Why? Because
I mean, basically, you can Apple Pay. Like you can still make all the things that you need to do from your phone. When you lose your phone, you're in a bad spot. I completely agree. And all the stuff that I need to cancel in my wallet, if I lose my wallet, it's in my phone. Exactly. You've got everything saved there.
Yeah.
So I'd rather lose my wallet. Although I have to say it's not fun when you do that either. It's a pain in the neck. But
I lost one at a Super Bowl. I lost one at a Super Bowl in Tampa. That was not great. Trust me. That was not an ideal moment for me a few years ago. All right, what would make an ideal first season for you? Like, obviously, the answer is to win the Super Bowl. We know that. Okay, so taking that as the carrot at the end of the string aside, what would make year one for Matt Ryan in Indy a success?
Well, I mean, you said it. Obviously, you want to win. I think just making an impact on this team. And trying to. Yeah. I think it's a young group that has, knocked on that ceiling of trying to break through and go. And I think the success would be, number one, playing really well, but number two, also, helping a lot of these guys realize their potential and what we're capable of, and providing that leadership and guidance that, I've gained during my time, in the league, and showing them the way, to get it done. That to me would be the success of number one, playing really well myself, but number two, making sure we're getting the best out of everybody in our locker room, and making them realize their potential.
Well, listen, that's the charge for you as the quarterback, and we'll see what happens this season. Look, always fun catching up with you, man. I appreciate the time, and this day and age, at 37, you're young. You'll play for another 6 or 7 years. I'm sure.
Easy. What's 43, 44? It's nothing now.
That's Brady still as a Patriot. Yeah. Come on, that's nothing, man. We're good. All right, Matty, be good, all right?
Thanks, Trey. Always good to see you, man.
So once again, thanks to Matt Ryan for joining us to kick off Season 8. Really excited to see what he can do with the Colts in that offense this year. And even though he really didn't want to talk about Super Bowl 51, I'm glad he was able to give us some insights on it. We'll see what happens with the Colts going forward. Meanwhile, next week, another great guest for you. If the Rams are going to do something that the Patriots were last to do, repeat as Super Bowl champs in 38 and 39, the Super Bowls, this player is going to have to be a big part of their success this year. Next week, our episode with Allen Robinson, new Rams wide receiver, drops. We'll see you then.